For decades, the Port of Cotonou in Benin was a lifeline, not just for its own economy, but for the vast landlocked nations of the Sahel. Trucks moved day and night, containers flowed inland, customs revenues surged. But everything changed when relations between Benin and its northern neighbors, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, collapsed. And in the fallout, Benin's economy began to feel the shock. Before the political tensions, Benin thrived as a gateway to the Sahel. The Port of Cotonou served as a major entry point for goods heading to Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. These three landlocked countries depended heavily on coastal neighbors to access global trade routes. And Benin benefited enormously. Transit trade accounted for a significant share of port activity, thousands of trucking and logistics jobs, customs revenues worth hundreds of millions annually. Fuel sales, warehousing, and re-export trade. Entire sectors of Benin's economy were built around servicing Sahelian imports, but then politics intervened. In 2023 and 2024, military coups reshaped the Sahel, first in Mali, then in Burkina Faso, then in Niger. These three nations, all now governed by military-led authorities, formed a new alliance known as the Alliance of Sahel States, commonly called the AES. The AES marked a dramatic geopolitical shift. They distanced themselves from ECOWAS and Western influence. They sought greater sovereignty. They strengthened ties with alternative global partners. And this is where tensions with Benin escalated. The Niger crisis that sparked it all. The turning point came after the 2023 coup in Niger. When President Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown, ECOWAS imposed sanctions and border closures. Benin, being an ECOWAS member, aligned with regional decisions. Borders were restricted, trade routes were affected, port access became complicated. Niger accused Benin of supporting hostile regional pressure. Benin accused Niger of destabilizing regional order. Trust broke down rapidly. Soon the relationship deteriorated beyond diplomacy. As tensions escalated, AES countries began shifting trade away from Benin. At various points, border crossings were shut, truck movement stalled, and port cargo destined for AES states declined sharply. Whether framed as sanctions enforcement or security concerns, the outcome was the same. Transit trade through Cotonou plummeted. Instead, AES members redirected trade through alternative corridors, including routes via Togo, Ghana, Algeria, and even new partnerships through North Africa. For Benin, the impact was immediate. The Port of Cotonou had relied heavily on Nigerian transit cargo in particular. In fact, Niger alone accounted for a major share of transit volume. When that traffic stopped, port revenues dropped, customs income declined, trucking businesses lost contracts, fuel stations near borders suffered, warehousing demand shrank. While the estimated daily loss of $7 million specifically refers to foregone oil transit fees, the broader impact spans the country's entire logistics and trade infrastructure. The following factors contribute to these significant daily losses. Foregone oil transit fees. Direct revenue loss. Benin loses an estimated $7 million daily in transit fees that would have been paid by Niger for the export of its crude oil. The pipeline project. A 2,000 kilometers Chinese-built pipeline designed to transport 90,000 to 110,000 barrels of oil per day to Benin's Semekapoji terminal remains largely underutilized or blocked due to the border dispute. Collapse of port and customs revenue. Port of Cotonou. Traditionally the financial lung of Benin, the port has lost nearly all of its transit traffic to Niger, which previously accounted for 80 to 90% of its volumes destined for landlocked countries. Customs shortfall. Customs revenue at the Port of Cotonou dropped by approximately 40% in the first quarter following the crisis. The government's target of over 700 billion FCFA in customs revenue for 2024-2025 through 2026 is under severe threat. Vessel traffic. The number of ships calling at the port has decreased from an average of 95 to 100 per month to roughly 70 to 80. Shift to regional competitors. Diversion to Togo. Nigerian traders have been officially encouraged by their Chamber of Commerce to bypass Benin in favor of the port of Lomé in Togo, which is accessible via Mali and Burkina Faso. Long-term risk. This shift threatens to permanently weaken Benin's status as a regional transit hub as Niger establishes more reliable, albeit more expensive, alternative routes. Broader socio-economic impact. Transport sector. Large-scale immobilization of trucks has led to a standstill in the transport industry, forcing banks to restructure loans for trucking companies unable to repay debts. Northern recession. Regions in northern Benin, like Malanville, that rely heavily on border trade are experiencing a localized recession, with perishable goods rotting in stranded trucks. Growth revisions. The IMF previously revised Benin's projected growth rate downward from 6% to 5.4%, specifically citing the border closure as a primary cause. Benin is pivoting its economic and security strategy toward Nigeria to offset the severe financial losses caused by the exit of Niger and other members of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, from its trade corridors. Economic survival and port revenue. The Port of Cotonou is Benin's financial lung, but it has seen a dramatic decline in activity. Benin is doubling down on its relationship with Nigeria to replace lost Sahelian trade by formalizing the massive informal entrepot trade, where goods like rice and used cars are imported to Benin, specifically for the Nigerian market. Strategic integration with Nigeria. Presidents Patrice Talon and Bola Tinubu have shifted from past border tensions, like the 2019 closure, toward full integration. New trade framework. In August 2025, the two nations agreed on a framework to remove bottlenecks at the Semekapoji border and harmonize customs procedures. Energy dependence. Benin remains heavily dependent on Nigeria for electricity, owing over $11 million for power supplied in early 2025. Financial and legal alignment. Recent agreements include plans for collaboration between central banks and deepening legal frameworks for debt recovery and trade harmonization. Security and political stability. The threat of regional contagion from Sahelian coups has made Nigeria Benin's primary security guarantor. Coup prevention. Following a foiled coup attempt in Benin in December 2025, the Nigerian Air Force conducted airstrikes against fleeing plotters. Military cooperation. Nigeria deployed approximately 260 troops to Benin to secure the country post-coup, withdrawing only in late January 2026 after stability was restored. Diplomatic support. Nigeria successfully lobbied for Benin's election to the African Union Peace and Security Council in February 2026 to strengthen its regional standing against the AES bloc. Economic shockwaves inside Benin. The economic consequences spread quickly. Logistics sector hit hard. Thousands of truck drivers and clearing agents faced reduced work. Customs revenue decline. Transit duties had been a critical part of government revenue. Currency pressure. Reduced export and transit activity affected foreign exchange flows. Rising domestic prices. As regional supply chains shifted, some imports became more expensive. Though Benin's economy did not collapse entirely, growth projections were revised downward. Investor confidence wavered. Political rift between Benin and AES. AES members accused Benin of siding with ECOWAS pressure campaigns. Benin defended its position as adherence to regional agreements. Diplomatic exchanges grew tense. Public statements hardened. The formation of the AES marked a long-term strategic shift, and Benin suddenly found itself economically isolated from three of its biggest transit partners. Alternative corridors rise. As Benin lost traffic, other ports gained. Landlocked Sahel countries began using Lomé in Togo, Tema in Ghana, and North African Mediterranean corridors. Over time, supply chains adapt, and once new routes are established, it becomes harder to win back lost trade. For Benin, the fear is not just temporary losses, but permanent rerouting of Sahelian commerce. Has Benin's economy crashed? While the word crashed may be debated, there is no doubt the country has suffered. Reduced port volumes, declining transit revenue, and lower growth momentum. However, Benin has attempted to compensate by investing in industrial zones, diversifying export markets, modernizing port infrastructure, and expanding agricultural production. Still, the loss of Sahel transit trade remains one of the most significant economic setbacks in recent years. Can relations be repaired? The future depends on diplomacy. If relations between ECOWAS and AES normalize, trade routes could reopen fully. But if geopolitical divisions deepen, Benin may permanently lose its position as a primary gateway to the Sahel. For a small coastal nation whose economy benefited enormously from regional integration, this is a high-stakes situation. The story of Benin and the Sahel is a lesson in how politics and economics are deeply intertwined. When borders close, when alliances shift, when trust erodes, even ports can fall silent. Benin once stood as a bridge between the ocean and the desert. Now that bridge is under strain, and the cost has been counted in millions.